All right, welcome back to another show. We have a lot of Q&A today and a lot of good quiz questions. Anything that I say is definitely not meant to bypass your medical doctor to give you medical advice. It's just meant for your own education on different symptoms. Check with your doc before, taking any of the advice that I'm going to give you. All right. I always like to just dive right in, Steve, and let's start answering a lot of questions. There's quite a few people that are here in the portal here that definitely have questions. So
we certainly do. So, and to kick it off is Franca from Toronto, and she's going to unmute herself and ask you some fascinating questions. Franca, you're on with Dr. Berg.
Hi.
Because it's information overload everywhere.
I know.
Correct. So a little bit about myself. Hypo, Hashimoto's. I'm on heavy dose Synthroid, Cytomel. My level is at 0.8, where it was at 40 before. So that's great. TSH, 0.8.
Mm-hmm.
My doctor always likes me to see me below 1, which is not a lot of doctors like that. Low iron, PCOS, menopause. Now, in 1995, I was put on 3 weeks of IV gentamicin, 24 hours a day for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. After that, I started gaining weight. And I put on over 100 pounds. In 2005, I did keto. I lost that 100 pounds. Went off my thyroid meds because my thyroid had just stabilized on its own. And even though the doctor was against it, I stabilized for years. And then I left the keto and I just started eating normally, like a normal person. Not
normal food, right? Yeah.
Pardon?
Normal food.
Normal food. And I'm not an indulger and I'm not a big eater. But because this Hashimoto kicked in and hypo, but I think it's hypo because of the Hashimoto's. So I know what I'm doing. And this time it was just stabilizing. So I cut out the gluten and dairy and it's still stabilized. No weight gain, just stabilized. And the last time I lost 100 pounds, I was taking a lot of potassium. I was taking about 3 tablets a day and B12 shots. Now, the potassium was giving me a pain in my right side where my liver is. Is that normal?
So I'm going to just kind of give you have a lot of data there. I just want to give you some advice because we have a lot of people here. So as far as is that normal? No, it's not normal to have pain in your right side. So I don't know the details of how much you're taking and what else you're eating and things like that. But I do know that a daily requirement for potassium is 4,700, which is a lot higher than what people are taking. So, also if you take a lot of potassium without the sea salt, that can throw you out of balance. But I think you mentioned a couple things that are little red flags. One is that PCOS is purely too much insulin. So getting on healthy keto, intermittent fasting is the solution for that. And long term, you probably want to stick on that long term. But Hashimoto's is not really a thyroid problem per se. It's affecting the thyroid, but it's an immune problem that usually is affecting the gut. If I were you, what I would do is I would shift your focus on, of course, staying on keto and intermittent fasting, but also supporting your gut with fermented foods and probiotics and making sure that you don't take any gluten for sure, because that's the big trigger of Hashimoto's is gluten. So if you support your gut and try to heal that with some good zinc as well, I think your thyroid is going to actually be very, very happy. And a lot of these other problems will do better because it's an autoimmune disease, which actually stems from the gut. So I would focus on that as the primary thing. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to try to just get through everyone's question and try to come up with like just one question, because sometimes when we get into the history of everything, it's like that could be a half hour just on one history. So that's my advice. Work on your gut for now.
Well, that's great. Well, Franca, thank you so much for joining us as our debut caller. And why don't we kind of go over to social media and find out what's going on over there. So on YouTube, Megan has a question about dozing off while quitting smoking. Why does this happen and how can I fix it? And good for you, Megan, for undertaking that. That is a difficult habit to kick. I know firsthand, and so do millions of others. So, Doc, how can we help Megan with her drowsiness?
Well, I think I would start beefing up, no pun intended, the B vitamins, specifically B1, and probably the whole B complex from nutritional yeast, because and vitamin C. Smoking tends to deplete you, and then as you come off, what happens is that your adrenals are probably working harder, because smoking tends to stimulate the adrenals. It keeps it going. So if you think about when people smoke, if you watch them smoke, they're smoking to feel this sense of relaxation, this calmness, to take the stress away. But it's actually working the adrenals pretty hard. So now when you come off that, there's no more artificial stimulation to the adrenals. So you need something to kind of, as a transition. I think the B vitamins are essential. Would definitely make sure you have enough sea salt too. That's really good for the adrenal. But the B vitamins would be the go-to. That's what I would do.
Well, that's wonderful. I hope that helps. And I'll tell you, back when I quit smoking 30 years ago, you could smoke and you had a big pile of ashes on your desk. You could smoke everywhere. Now you have to like crawl out to some secluded area to have one. It's just a pain in the butt to smoke anymore. So
it really is. It really, especially you can't even smoke on an airplane anymore. What's up with that?
Oh, I know the hilarious non-smoking where all the smoke would roar up the tube and asphyxiate everyone else. But boy, those were the days, man. I really had fun doing that. But now I'm glad that my lungs are pink again, or at least I assume they are. Speaking of things, let's go to our first question, Dr. Berg, and it asks, if the sugar fructose is so low on GI 19,
that's the glycemic index.
Glycemic index, then why is it so bad for you? What's going on with that, audience? And we will get your answers forthcoming. And why don't we take a moment out? As I told you in the green room, we've got
Uh-oh. I think Steve...
Oh, there we go. You got me back?
There you go.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
I got you back.
my thumb faltered on the button. A good morning shout out to all our viewers in the UK, Canada, Iraq, Sweden, Algeria, Sri Lanka, India, Australia, Belgium, Hong Kong, the Czech Republic, Israel, Scotland, Switzerland, and of course, in particular, somebody coming up, we have Hans that will come to us from the Netherlands. We got Wendy from New Zealand coming up. And a bunch of other ones. So thanks everybody in the world for checking in and enjoying the benefits of intermittent fasting and keto and all the great guidance that you get from Dr. Berg. So with that, why don't we go to our next participant in the green room. Wendy, you're going to be up next with Dr. Berg, so unmute yourself. And Wendy, you're on live with Dr. Berg. Go ahead, Wendy, with your question.
Hi, Dr. Berg.
Hi.
Hi. How are you doing? I have been doing your healthy keto and the intermittent fasting, 1 meal a day, and I have reached my goal weight. And I was just wondering what is next. Now, I am postmenopausal, so I'm 59 years old. I have been doing regular exercise. Regularly exercise every day. I do have one kidney because I donated one, and it's just a matter, I have to watch my cholesterol, and yeah, I don't want to gain the weight back, right? It's hard losing it, but it's also hard then maintaining and keeping it off. So what's next?
if you have like 3 donuts, I don't know how many, it's like what, 600 calories. It takes you maybe a half hour to eat that, but it sure takes a lot longer to burn those off, doesn't it? Here's the thing. I think you're at a stage now where you're kind of in a maintenance, and the best thing to do would be to don't change too many things other than increase your fats. If you're losing too much, for example. Here's the data on fats, and this is fascinating. I did release a video on it. If you try to do keto, and then you add your carbs, and now you're not in keto. Unfortunately, those fats that you're eating are not necessarily going to be burned for fuel. They're going to be stored as triglycerides and fatty liver and increased bad cholesterol, all that. But the key is keeping your carbs low, especially in the maintenance. Then you can afford to eat more fat without any danger. Now, the whole cholesterol thing is a whole different topic. I would get that advanced lipid profile to measure your particle size, and that's a little different test, which measures the LDL size. If they're real small, dense, or large, buoyant. If you're doing low carb, you're not going to get the small, dense, damaging particle size LDL. So even though your cholesterol is a little higher, it's not going to be an issue. Realize that as you burn fat, the fat releases these triglycerides, which are then going to be used as fuel if your carbs are low. And you can't burn cholesterol, so that has to go through the body. So anytime your cholesterol maybe is a little too high, it's a good indicator that you need more bile. Maybe the liver needs more help. So you just add a little bile salts, and then the cholesterol comes down. So there's a couple little things you have to tweak for this. But I think with you, what you're doing now, I would not change too many things because it worked for you. Chances are you're not going to continue to lose weight. Most people have a set point they'll hit, and then they hover around there. It's real difficult to get below that. So I think you're on the right track. You experience benefit. I wouldn't change too many things other than add more fat, but definitely don't add the carbs, especially if you want to keep the cholesterol in check.
Well, that's terrific. Wendy
Thank
from
you.
New Zealand, thank you so much for participating today, and I hope and I trust that helped. Let's go over to social media. Facebook, why am I getting dry mouth while on keto, especially after eating keto bread? Now, don't take a jab at keto bread, for goodness sakes. Docs, how can we help him get some moisture in his mouth?
I don't know if that bread's made with almond flour or whatnot, but I will say that when you're on keto, you do definitely lose more fluids because you're losing your glycogen reserve, or a good amount of it. And so glycogen is glucose stored, and it's kind of like a bunch of carbohydrates that are stored. And if you think of the word carbohydrate, there's hydration going with this carb, right? So you have water that is accumulating with glucose stored in the body. So as you get rid of all that, you get rid of a lot of the fluids, and then you can go on the dry side. So you do need to drink more fluid, as well as, just drink in adequate amount, but make sure your electrolytes are high. So like the sea salts and the electrolytes, that way you won't get dry mouth. That's usually going to solve it right there.
Good. Well worth the effort. All that great health and weight loss for many of us, that's a goal. Now, let's go back to our question. So the first question of today is, sugar fructose is so low on the glycemic index, you just taught me that, 19, then why is it so bad for you? And our audience suggests 79% say it's hard on the liver, 11% say raises blood sugar, 5% say hard on the kidneys, and 5% say raises blood pressure. Anybody on the right track, Doc?
Yeah, everyone's on the right track. This fructose is a different type of sugar, and high fructose corn syrup is slightly more fructose than glucose, but it still has some glucose in there. So glucose is 100 on the glycemic index, right? Fructose is like 19, 20. So you think, oh, wow, fructose from fruit. It's healthier. It's low. It's not going to affect my diabetes. But unfortunately, only a certain part of your body can deal with fructose, and that's the liver. So glucose, like all the cells, can deal with it. So now you're going to force feed your liver all this very specific type of sugar, and that's where you run into problems, especially since the majority of the population has insulin resistance. Now, that fructose is going to make turn into triglycerides. It's going to create more insulin resistance. It's going to create a fatty liver. You're going to be getting fat from it, and it's also can be converted to glucose. So fructose is not very friendly to your liver or the rest of your body. An average person in the United States, especially in kids, are literally drinking ungodly amounts of fructose in their sodas and fruit juices, things like that. And I think people will say, well, fruits on trees, and yeah, but we're not consuming our fruits seasonally anymore. We consume them all year round, and they've been hybrid to have more carbs. Even one like apple is about 19 grams. Now, I have some indigenous apple trees on my property in the woods there, and these apples are real small. They're not very pretty, and they're very tart, and they're not very sweet. So I also have indigenous grapes, which are very, very bitter. So those are the type of fruits that, maybe we consumed long ago. Now it's all year round. And I think an average person in the United States consumes up to 100 grams of fructose a day.
Woo. So
you can imagine our liver, what's happening with the fatty liver and the insulin resistance. It's messing everything up. So it's insidious, it's deadly, and you definitely need to avoid it.
All right. Listen up, audience. And all you smarty pants that got the first question right, let's see how you do on number 2. And it asks, if your phlegm turns from yellow to green, what does it mean? Well, in my mind, it means we're no longer dating. That's just absolutely awful. But what do you guys think it means from a medical standpoint? And we throw that out to you. And then why don't we go back to social media? Lilia from Facebook, how can we get rid of heavy metals on a regular basis? I use lots of celery and parsley in my smoothies every day. Is that chelation, Doc, or what do we do about all that?
Yeah, I think you can use a chelator. EDTA is a good chelator for that, to pull out the heavy metals. Bentonite clay is another one you can use, but EDTA is a good chelator. Chelator means to chelate, to bind, or to like a claw. So it holds onto the metals, pulls it through the body. Also, it's very important to find out the source of where these heavy metals are coming from and avoid that as well. But yeah, you can use a chelator, but just make sure the chelators pull out everything too. So you got to put back in the minerals that you want, like potassium, magnesium, zinc, things like that.
Well, that's terrific.
And then Steve, I think you had a question about fasting. I think I've heard you were doing some regular fasting, and then all of a sudden you had a question about it. How often are you doing fasting, and what's the latest on that?
Well, I've done two-day sessions, and I loved it, Doc. I felt clear-headed. It was also very easy. What are you going to eat today? Nothing. I mean, that's easy instructions for me, and I really enjoyed it. And I have your electrolyte formula, and I was being religious with that. But I like to do it. I mean, it's kind of, you lose weight like a bandit, for one thing. It's kind of fun. But I really like the feeling of it. And I've heard some caution across the, internet. You can only do it once a month for 2 days. I'd like to do it once a week or something. But, I don't want to get off and do something that would be, ill-advised for my health. So I'd love your comment on that, Doc. I really like fasting beyond. And by the way, just a caveat, I do intermittent fast every day. So I'm, 20 and 4 basically. And I must admit, I don't always eat the best things during that 4-hour period. So that's work in process. But I do love the whole process of fasting, whether it's intermittent or now just trying the longer term, 48 or 76 hours.
The key word is keto, fat adapted. Once you're fat adapted, which takes between 1 and 3 months, you can fast frequently and your body can get right into it. And you're basically just running off your fat. It's not that you're not eating. your body's just eating your own fat. And it's a really good fuel. These ketones are very therapeutic in many ways, especially your brain, your hypothalamus, your memory will start improving, your mood will increase. So why the heck wouldn't you want to do frequent fasts? I mean, our bodies were designed to not eat so regular. So I think I would really go by how you feel, your energy, your cognitive function, and do as much fasting as you can, Steve, because think about this. There's something called autophagy. Autophagy is kind of a way of cleaning out all these old damaged proteins. And you're reducing your risk for all sorts of things, including cancer, as well as increasing your longevity. So you're going to live longer doing this. So I would ride the wave, Steve, and do as much as you possibly can. There's, especially if you feel good, you're taking your nutrients. I think you're going to be fine.
Thank you, Doc. I feel great. I go run after that or lift weights, and I don't feel exhausted or, out of juice. If anything, maybe, at least within 2 days, I feel more energetic. So far, my experience has been great. However, Scott from YouTube is not having such a great experience because he has heartburn while fasting, and he wants to know the best approach to, deal with this condition, heartburn during fasting.
Some people get gastritis, which is more of an acid type thing when they fast. It's a temporary thing. It tells us that you need to work on your friendly bacteria. Maybe you want to take more of a probiotic and start building up your gut a little bit more. And zinc is a real good one to take too. I've talked about that, especially if you're fasting. I think personally, whoever said that is deficient in zinc. So zinc L-carnosine is the key to that symptom. That's the magic. That's the secret.
Wonderful. Well, that is terrific. I tell you what, why don't we go back to our guests in the green room, and we've got a very special guest in Dan. He's a voiceover expert, and he makes all of us feel wimpy in our voices. Wait till you get a load of Dan's voice. Dan, you are on with Dr. Berg.
Well, it's kind words. Thank you, Steve. Dr. Berg, nice to meet you. Thank you for your time. A shout out to my brother to begin with. He first told me about you when I was reluctant to watch, but I watched a lot of your videos and I continue to do that. I've learned a great deal. About 4 months ago, I started keto. I started with 72-hour fast. And at this point, I've lost about 50 pounds. I'm 15 pounds away from my goal. So I'm feeling great. I'm 60 years old. So somebody can't say at your older age, you can't do this. You can do this. I'm slowly incorporating more of the keto ideas and your ideas or recommendations into my daily routine. I like your battery analogy, by the way, burning fat versus burning sugar in one of your videos. I really like that. Anyway, about a month ago, I had a 4-hour keto flu, and I had no idea what that was until I had it. Very weird sensation. But I recuperated, and now I'm still back on the keto, so it's going great. The only thing I actually want to say was just one thing. I'm on 2 medications. I cut off one of them. I was on metoprolol for an irregular heartbeat, and now my heartbeat is fine. It may be due to the electrolytes that I'm taking that you recommended, and also I just started on the wheatgrass. Here's a residual problem. Just prior to this whole idea with COVID, we're not going to talk about COVID, but just prior to becoming public, I felt like probably I did have the virus, but one of the residual problems that I've had ever since is that I have excessive yawning, and halfway into a yawn, I can't complete the yawn. It's a very odd thing. I have to stop the yawn. I can't take a deep breath, and I try to take a deep breath. I'm trying deep breathing exercises and relaxation, but I'm still struggling with this inability to take a deep breath and complete a yawn. There are some days I have much yawning and I can't complete the yawn, and other days not so much. But it's been a perplexing problem since COVID. What do you think?
Wow, that's the first time anyone ever brought that up. That's a really good question. Honestly, I'm going to have to do some research on that because I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea what that could be coming from.
Okay.
So I will say this though, that keto flu is definitely a sodium deficiency. So if you're on keto, I would have a tendency to go up to about 2 teaspoons of sea salt, high quality a day. Even, even to protect, there's some great data on this, on even high blood pressure. That's hardcore. It's called you can read the Pure study, and people are more protected by a little more salt than less salt. So that's just fascinating, very disruptive to the medical establishment. But as far as the yawning goes, and as far as the COVID goes, when this virus does go into the body, it attacks nerve endings in your sinus passageways and the olfactory nerve, which can affect, taste, smell, those type of things. It can also deplete zinc reserves. So I think the best thing for you to do would be to just beef up on your general nutrients to see if there's one of those that might have gotten knocked out. It could be, a combination of vitamin D or zinc, vitamin C. Those are the ones that can be decreased when you have virus infections. But zinc is a real big one, and zinc could affect so many different aspects of this. Magnesium is another one, but I don't know if this is a problem in your diaphragm or in some other nerve reflex, but I'll have to do some research and get back to you on this.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, that's something else. I had COVID, and instead of losing my taste, it changed my taste. I could not take any kind of artificial sweetener, monk fruit, nothing. It tasted horribly bitter. So my iced tea went to no sweeteners at all. So it really manifests itself in some bizarre ways in different people. But we wish you all the best, Dan. Thanks so much for joining in on the show. And why don't we go back to some questions we had here. This very earthy one. If your phlegm turns from yellow to green, what does it mean? And we have 100% quorum in our audience that says it indicates some sort of infection or inflammation. To me, it sounds gross.
Okay, Steve. So if you go from a yellow to a green phlegm, which is kind of the mucus coming from your lungs, it's a sign that you have a more serious infection. That's all. The yellow is a milder infection. The green is a more severe infection. So just data to know about, Steve. I know it's disgusting, but our bodies sometimes have mucus, and it's good to know the different colors. Stay tuned for the video on that so you can identify the different colors in your phlegm, Steve. How about that?
Well, that's great. Well, some people are more mature than me, like yourself, and you can just get right into it. I mean, it needs to be talked about. How about we go to the next question? And this is less earthy. It's asking, the best vegetable to eat for osteoarthritis is, drum roll, audience, what do you say? And let's see. Why don't we go back to social media? Please help, says Chris on YouTube. My uric acid has been 10 to 14 for weeks with gout attacks. Those are awful. Have a test kit. I've been on keto diet with regular fasting for months, taking remedies other than meds. What can poor Chris do about the gruesome gout condition?
So here's the problem. Uric acid has an interesting antioxidant function in the blood. It's used there as an antioxidant. So he's producing too much of it. All right, so you're going to maybe have to shift your diet from consuming certain foods that are high in purines that are then turning into this uric acid. So I have a video on that. But the other thing is that we want to change your pH because I think you're maybe slightly too acid. So in that case, the best way to do it is to increase more of the alkaline vegetables, okay? So that bigger salads. A lot of times when people do keto, they don't do the salad part. Well, that'll totally help you with the pH situation and help curb some of the acidity. If there's uric acid in the body and you can alkalize the body a little bit, at least it won't deposit out and create an irritation in your joints. it's not really the crystals that are irritating the joint. It's the immune reaction. It's your own immune system that's creating this inflammation in your big toe and some of the other joints. So a couple things. One is to beef up your salads. Number two is to drink more lemon juice. And also to start taking some other antioxidants, like a very good, maybe a food-based vitamin C would be good. And that way your body won't necessarily have to produce as much uric acid. But it's trying to help you. But of course, it's coming with a package. Some people have just more flare-ups with gout. A couple things too. A lot of these keto foods can flare up gout. Like chocolate, for example. All of a sudden they get toe pain when they eat chocolate. So you might have to go through that list and change the foods that you're eating despite them being keto friendly. Some of the keto friendly chocolates, for example, that could be one cause.
All right, Chris, well, we're all certainly pulling for you. That's just a gruesome ailment. I understand. I haven't had to suffer with that. So please keep in touch with us and let us know what happens as you modify your diet, but it's great that you're taking care of your health. Otherwise, then let's go over to Facebook. So Susan wants to know, what's better to use, Himalayan salt or unrefined sea salt? And Doc, I just further with that, is there a health benefit or is it just taste or any difference?
Well, the pink Himalayan sea salt is pretty high quality. There's a lot of other ones out there. I guess it's Celtic or Celtic salt is really good. The main thing is where's the source of this sea salt? Is it unpolluted? Nowadays, if you just have regular sea salt, it could come from some ocean that's polluted. But Himalayan sea salt is actually in the mountain structure, so it's been there for quite some time. It's very unlikely that it's polluted. But that's kind of what we're trying to reduce is just the unpolluted sea salt. So there's also another real interesting salt that I'm really fascinated by. It's sea salt in a mine in Kansas. It's Kansas sea salt, and it's deep underneath the earth, and it's very, very tasty. Actually, it gives a lot of flavor. But again, there's a lot of different types of salt out there. You should just experiment with them. But nowadays, if you get table salt, that's literally toxic because it's loaded with plastic and all sorts of things. You don't know where you're going to get that. So, stick with the Himalayan. I think that's a really good one to use. That's what I'm using right now.
Terrific. Thank you for that, Doc. By the way, the residents of the Philippines are furious with us for not mentioning them in the shout out. So thank you all from the Philippines for watching and engaging in the show. And we'll never let that happen again, I can assure you. So let us know that you're out there again next week. And I'm going to put you front and center. Okay, so the quiz question number 3, the best vegetable to eat for osteoarthritis. Audience says 90% say cruciferous or dark leafy vegetables. 5% say garlic, if that's a vegetable, and then 5% just throwing the whole vegetable thing out and say that organic eggs and meat are the remedy for that sort of thing. How do we do, Doc?
Well, I think we need to work on that answer, but it's cabbage. Cabbage is, there's some great studies on cabbage helping osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis is not necessarily supposed to be an autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis, right? It's supposed to be more wear and tear, weight-bearing joints. Then why do people get osteoarthritis in their fingers that are not weight-bearing? That's the question. So I'll do a video on that. There's an autoimmune component to this, which starts in the gut. And cabbage, especially if you do fermented cabbage, as in sauerkraut, or just regular cabbage, I think that's going to be one of the best vegetables for those with osteoarthritis. You get to feed the microbes. The microbes help reduce inflammation. So I think you'll see some great benefits with pain from this cabbage. And cabbage seems to be a really good vegetable to consume when people can't really do other vegetables. It's just really, it has some unique properties for your fermentation, your gut, and also has certain things to help heal ulcers and gastritis and GI issues.
Well, I hated cabbage as a youngster, but I'm just great with it now. Dee Dee from Facebook is curious about cheese, however, and she wants to know how much and what kind should she be eating on a keto lifestyle.
A lot of people have a sensitivity to the milk sugars and also just an allergy to casein in cheese. So I would just not go crazy with it, but have maybe a small amount, maybe 3 ounces, maybe once or twice a day. But I will say, it's if you are estrogen dominant or you're a male with prostate enlargement, you want to cut the cheese out. That was kind of a very part of my dry sense of humor. But I would definitely, if you're going to do cheese, make sure it's organic, comes from grass-fed, either cow or sheep or goat. And I like to have the European cheeses because they like to use some of the traditional, aging cheeses in caves, which have a real good set of friendly microbes that are good for your GI system.
All right. Well, that's terrific. Let's go back to YouTube. And Helen, this is an important question. I want you to talk about autism diets and supplements and anything else that can help autistic kids.
One of the absolute best things you can do for autism is to put these kids on a keto diet. Oh my gosh, they do very, very well with that. And then, of course, vitamin B1 and zinc are essential. I have a video out there on autism and what I would recommend if my child had autism. I think the ketones supporting the brain is going to be very therapeutic. That's what I would do, Steve. And there's a diet, there's a ketogenic diet for epilepsy. And what you're doing, the difference between that keto plan and regular keto plans is that you're going lower on the protein and higher on the fat. So 90% of your diet is fat. And then we have a lower amount of protein and very low carb. It's just higher in fat. And that's a really good way to get someone into some serious ketosis. If you add exercise to that, you get even more ketones. If you add more fasting, you get more ketones. And it's really beneficial to support the brain and even heal certain parts of the brain that are damaged when someone has autism.
Well, that's very encouraging. We hope that makes a big difference in your friend's life. All right, let's move on to the next question. The question asks, the best exercise to increase your telomere length, did I say that right, Doc, what's the best exercise to increase whatever the heck the telomere length is?
The telomere has to do with these end little caps, like on your shoes, Steve, like you have shoelaces and you have the little plastic end on the shoelace. Yes. That's a telomere on your chromosome. It's a protective coating that helps to keep your genes or chromosomes at a certain length. So as you age, it shrinks, and that's correlated to a shorter lifespan. So there are all sorts of natural remedies like resveratrol and Coumadin, all these different things that you can take that can help support those telomeres. But as far as exercise goes, the question is, what type of exercise should you be doing to keep your telomeres as long as possible?
Well, that's fantastic. So, audience, you chew on that. And by the way, Terry, our producer, just keeps piling in more people that are shouting out from around the world, Antigua, Pakistan, Japan. I mean, it's just so wonderful with all the troubles and anxiety in the world. Boy, this is one topic, health, and especially as you have displayed it, Dr. Berg, that everybody can come together, regardless of our various differences, and celebrate good health and long life and, a better mental mood. That's what I'm after. So it's really exciting. And thanks everybody from around the world in the United States for participating. We're watching you. Dr. Berg goes through darn near every question there is and tries to make sense of it. And that is the spawning ground for the many great videos he has that, by the way, drberg.com. So thank you, world, for giving Dr. Berg the fodder that he needs to develop new videos and so on. So that's just fabulous. Now let's see. JB from YouTube, speaking of one of our viewers, will keto work with someone who has had gastric bypass surgery? Interesting question.
Especially, most people do gastric bypass to help their diabetes, and it does work because you're altering the small intestine, and that will automatically reduce your insulin levels. Because, as you remember in some of the other videos I did, you have carbs that stimulate insulin, and then eating stimulates insulin, and there's a certain thing, a hormone in your small intestine that triggers insulin. So if you're going to remove that or bypass that part, you instantly reduce insulin, and now we have an improvement in health. But, why not just do keto? But if you've already had the gastric bypass, you're going to have to modify your plan, because now your stomach is not as big, and you have reduced, size of your stomach and your maybe part of the small intestine. So you're going to have to probably take some bile salts, number one, because we have usually a deficiency in that. You're going to have to make sure you take vitamin D, zinc, trace minerals, maybe even a good amino acid supplement. And you're not going to be able to consume the amount of food that you did before. So it's kind of hard, because you're going to do intermittent fasting, but then you want to get all your nutrients from your food. So you may have to enhance that meal, because how are you going to consume 10 cups of salad in one sitting? You're not going to be able to do that. So you do what you can, and maybe you want to substitute with maybe like a green type powder that's really, really good to fortify your body.
Well, that's terrific. By the way, we're going to go to Elena and from our green room. But first, let's answer this question that I had initially found to be embarrassing in my ignorance. What exercise to increase your telomere length is? And what it really means is something to do with your DNA, as you said. And the quiz says 82% high-intensity training, 10% say walking, 8% say yoga. So have we made some progress or positive answers there, Doc?
I will say any exercise will help, but there's two types of exercise that are very, very powerful. One would be the high-intensity interval training. Okay, so most people are right on that. But also aerobic endurance exercise too will increase the telomere strength, length. But the other thing too is resistant training won't increase the size of that. However, it does help reduce the risk of heart attacks, diabetes, other diseases, which will then help you live longer. So it's not all about increasing your telomeres. It's about reducing the reason why people die. So I think in general, exercise may help you live longer. In fact, I know it will. So Steve, get out there, start running, and start doing high intense interval training.
All right away, sir. In the meantime, we're, as promised, going to go to Elena from Minneapolis. Elena, you are on with Dr. Berg. Go ahead with your one question, please.
Hello, Dr. Berg. Thank you for taking my call, and thank you for having your programs in Russian. I could share it with my friends and families. One question, but just quick, brief history. I have splenectomy followed because I had Hodgkin's disease, so I had chemo and radiotherapy in '86. And I'd like to thank you for the side effect from the keto diet. I lost 22 pounds since June. With my normal weight, very happy with that. But I'm getting, I've seen, I know you have videos on that. I started dropping sugar at night, and I have Freestyle Libre, which signals me at night and wakes me up at 3 a.m. So what do you do at that point? So I noticed that I eat more protein, so it's not really, but if I don't get enough protein, it wakes me up and I don't get enough sleep and get upset with that. So that's question number one. And question number two is, my blood work is good. My liver is not fatty. I've checked everything today. I took tests for the insulin resistance and I'm waiting for the results. But having all the good test results, I still have issues. And I know you're saying take vitamin B or zinc type of vitamins. What is enough? I mean, on the bottle, you take 1 tablet of zinc from standard process, but is it really enough? I mean, things like that. If your blood work is good, but you still don't get enough of certain minerals or vitamins, what is normal?
Right. I missed the first question because you phased out. Did it have to do with your not eating protein because it kind of keeps you up at night?
No, I did not know how much protein or salad or fat I should eat. And I felt like I eat the good amount of everything, but the sugar level drops at night. And what do you do at that moment?
Okay, so here's the thing. When you go low carb, your blood sugar should drop. The big question is, how do you feel? So even though your blood sugars are, let's say, 60 or even a little less, but you still feel okay, you might think it's a problem, it's hypoglycemia, but it's really not because you feel okay. What's that?
Well, I can't sleep. I wake up because I can't sleep well and I figured out it's kind of related. So, and I'm, when it drops down, you don't know what's happening, and Libre is alarming you. You don't know what to do. You get like, oh my God, what's happening? I don't want to get into coma.
Yeah, I doubt if you're going to go into coma, but here's what I would do. I would, first of all, you're dealing with probably some pretty severe insulin resistance, so you need to take some apple cider vinegar before bed. I think the other thing is that you might want to try more of fiber, maybe like a salad before bed, so your microbes have something to chew on and digest, and those can actually indirectly help your blood sugars and insulin resistance. As far as supplements in general, though, you're right. If you can't go by your blood because a lot of these nutrients are intracellular, like the potassium, magnesium, and it's the blood's the worst way to detect supplements. There is a test measuring your white blood cells, but that's a whole different topic. So I think because our digestive system is so compromised, I found you need to increase even more nutrients to create the effects. So with the zinc, with the other things, I always kind of err on the side of taking more than just the bare minimum. You asked another question. I had an answer for you, but now I phased out.
I think it was Hodgkin's, wasn't it? Or chemotherapy she had been going through?
No. It was 1986. I am completely clear. I'm a pretty healthy person. And I said that I had side effect from keto by losing weight. I am very program. I wish I knew about it. I wish I actually learned more about it.
You have to sort that out, Doc.
It's the best program ever. It's a new lifestyle. It's not a short-term keto diet or 1 meal a day. It's a new lifestyle. My husband and I love it. My husband lost close to 40 pounds since June. And we just have so much energy. We walk every day, but now we walk 23.
Well, we're having a little difficulty, but
what
kilometers. It's like, wow, life.
Well, I'm going to mute poor Elena out, but I think we get the gist, Dr. Berg. You want to carry on from there?
Yeah, it's hard to hear everything. So I think what I would do is I would definitely go up with your nutrients, especially a zinc. That would be a really important one, especially for your digestive system. Keep your sea salt on the high end. Keep your electrolytes higher. As far as the B vitamins go, how do you know if you're getting enough nutrients? You don't know, unfortunately, because if you understand like your symptoms, if you have a symptom, but you're going to have to watch more videos to determine the significance of what certain nutrient deficiencies will create. But that would be a whole different seminar than this talk. But so let's move on because I have to make sure we satisfy everyone's questions today. But thank you for your questions. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Elena. That's great, and I'm glad that you're enjoying the Russian channel. That's terrific. So why don't we go to Gurpreet who I'm not sure where he's coming from, but it sounds like maybe India or something. Let me bring him up here. Gurpreet, go ahead with your question for Dr. Berg. Make sure you're unmuted. Gurpreet, we can't hear you. Do you want to try to unmute? Or if not, we'll put you on hold for a minute and go on with the next person. I tell you what, I'm going to put you on a hold for just a minute, and we're going to go to Pushkar from Belgium. And Pushkar, you're on the air with Dr. Berg. Go ahead with your one question, please.
Hi, doctor. It's an honor to be with you. Pleasure to meet you, and thank you for having me on your show. I'll straight away come with a question. It's more of a composite question. So on 21st September, you had a video about gallstones and prolonged fasting, where you gave a generic modality of consuming more bile salts morning and night. So of course, the modality changes depending on the person, but that's a kind of a thumb rule thingy that you gave. Like, okay, you could go with that, and eventually the gallstone will dissolve or whatever. So my question is that, based on certain assumptions, if we continue with that modality, like what usually is the lead time by when we should expect the stones to dissolve? And the second question was does drinking hot water with ACV or without ACV acts as a catalytic aid in that process to speeden up that process? And if yes or not, what happens for people who have stomach ulcers? Does that modality change?
So here's the thing with the bile salts. It's really an impossible question, because I can't diagnose you or tell what's going on. I don't know how big the stones are. If they're small,
True.
If they're very small, it could take 6 to 8 weeks to dissolve them. But the best thing to do is to look up the research on using bile salts to dissolve stone, and then they have a lot of examples of this type of stone. But like, I've had this one lady came in, and her stone was as big as her gallbladder. Well, unfortunately, that's beyond dissolving that rock. So, but there's always other options that you could check with your doctor to make sure. Maybe there's an option of taking the stone out without taking the gallbladder. I like that option. I don't know if they'll do that, but just things I would check with your doctor. But there is a valid therapy of using purified bile salts and dissolving stones, and also preventing them, because you want to understand the mechanism. Now, as far as the water and apple cider vinegar goes, when you actually add warm water, you do stimulate more juices, digestive juices, and so you'll actually create maybe an improvement in your digestion with the apple cider vinegar. I think it's going to be a minor one, whether you use cold or hot water. But I will say, if you have an ulcer, you don't want to take apple cider vinegar. And the way that you would know is you take it and it burns, because it's an ulcer. And you don't want an acid on an open wound. Instead, you want to take things like a chlorophyll, wheatgrass juice powder, as well as zinc L-carnosine, to help heal either the inflammation or the ulcer in that stomach before adding any type of apple cider vinegar.
Hey, Pushkar, by the way, we're sort of running out of time, so I hope that was of some use to you, and thanks for calling in from Belgium. And I'm going to try to see if we can get Gurpreet back up. Do you have your audio on? Oh, I'm so sorry. I tell you what, we want you to come in next week, Gurpreet, and try again. We'll see if you can solve your question. By the way, you came in after the fact. Next week, if you would log in, and we'll make sure they get you a new link. I'll make sure I work with you to get that audio problem resolved, because we really want to hear what it is that you have to say. And let's go ahead with the final question, which asks, which hormone determines the type of calories you burn? So audience, you've been doing very well today. I think you had one terrible failure. Let's make up for that with a correct answer on which hormone determines the type of calories you burn. Okay, and Dr. Berg, I'm going to read this. I don't think you can see it this week, but here's some exciting upcoming videos. We talked about that, but this will expand on it. The best exercise for telomere length, why your good bacteria makes bile salts, eat this food for osteoarthritis? Can we drink alcohol to kill viruses and bacteria? And the wonderful benefits of walking. So those are some. And do you have some other ones you want to discuss, Dr. Berg?
I have quite a few, Steve. One's going to be the benefits of resistance training. Just some fascinating research on that topic. Also, I'm going to do a video on milk thistle, which goes well beyond just supporting the liver. It's one of the best things to take to counter poisoning of the liver, both alcohol, mushroom poisoning, Tylenol. It's and it goes beyond the liver, it goes in the kidney. So this is like an herb that you could literally grow in your house or in your garden and use it as your own natural remedy to support your liver. It actually has the ability to increase the liver regeneration cells and decrease liver enzymes, so decrease fibrosis. I mean, it's quite amazing that nature this is our own pharmacy, and you can go out there and grab these things. A lot of pharmaceutical companies get ideas from natural remedies, and then they can patent them, or they'll buy the patent so no one else can use them. But there's so many natural things out there that we can use without the side effects.
Very encouraging. Over to Facebook, Lamise wants to know, can someone with hypothyroidism fast longer than 16 hours?
I would do that. Why? Because most hypothyroidism is autoimmune. And think about what happens when you fast. You reduce inflammation. And that is the problem with autoimmune diseases. We want to reduce inflammation. So any autoimmune, you want to take vitamin D and do more fasting for sure.
All right. That's
so many benefits.
That's terrific. By the way, we have hit every question this week with answers from our astute audience. Which hormone determines the type of calories that you burn? And the audience, 95% of them say insulin, and 5% say glucagon. Did I say that right, Doc?
Glucagon?
Yes.
I think we got 95% of the people watching my videos, so that's well done. So yeah, the answer is insulin. It controls what calories, but whoever said glucagon is not incorrect, because glucagon does the opposite of insulin. It works in tandem. So in some aspects, glucagon will help you burn fat. Why? Because insulin is down, because they both work like this. So I think we finally have 100% right answers on that, Steve. So we have a very smart audience, and that's really my goal, is to just help people be smarter about their health.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
It's a new concept.
That's great. Well, Doc, let's see. So Valbona from Facebook, I've been doing intermittent fasting for more than a year, but I have trouble sleeping. Help!
Couple tips on sleeping. Try taking vitamin D3 before bed. It helps to reset the suprachiasmatic nuclei in your brain, which is the clock, the internal clock. Zinc is also really good before bed. And I have so many videos on what to do before sleep, but I think that it's going to be a temporary thing. I do know that you have more energy with keto, and that's always the problem of dealing with all this extra energy, but it's a temporary thing as you adapt. You may want to take, and I'm not biased on my own sleep aid, but of course I am, because it does work. Take 1 to 3 of those before bed. It's a great way to help you sleep, and it has some really interesting, unique things in there that no one else has. And it doesn't have the melatonin, which is a hormone. So we want to avoid taking hormones.
Well, sound advice, and we have filled the hour with great content. Dr. Berg, why don't you take us out and let people know what they can expect coming up in our next show or on drberg.com.
Like always, I want to just thank everyone for being here, and all of your great questions and support and great comments. I read a lot of these comments, and they're just over the top. So thank you very much, and stay tuned for next week.